What's up, Internet? Welcome back to the Collecting with Cory show. For those of you watching the video, this is kind of awkward because I'm just sitting in my car. That's not how you record a podcast, right? Well, today's a special episode where we deal with the live struggle of a collector trying to stay in his lane. What I mean by that is I have no intention of collecting more than video games and action figures. But lately, there's these little bricks that have been calling to me. Something from my childhood. Of course, I'm talking about Lego. So, sometime last year, I actually can't remember what occasion it was, I purchased for my wife the one of the Lego sets that they came out with that is basically succulents. They have like a floral theme of Lego sets that are basically like decorations for your desk kind of thing. And I thought that would be nice because she has a new desk, or at the time she had a new desk job where it'd be nice to have, something nice to look at all day. Well, it turns out my wife never grew up with Lego and was incredibly intimidated by the prospect of putting together that set. So it literally sat until we finally talked about it, and I was just like, do you not like the idea of putting Lego set on your desk at work? Like, maybe it's embarrassing as an adult. And she was like, no, I love it. It's just, I never built a Lego set before. Well, so now I've been tasked with building this Lego set for her. And it's bringing back all the feels of childhood for me. Following all the instructions, putting together little pieces. And I've been, unfortunately for myself, watching more and more Lego content on YouTube. Which, YouTube is a blessing and a curse in that sense, where it's like, if you are into something, there's a hell of a lot of content out there for you. The problem is, it makes you want to do what they're doing. Like, in many cases, there's no instance in which I'm watching a YouTube channel that it's not something I want to do. Unless it's like parkour, then I'm not looking to break my ankles. You don't want to see 500 pounds flying through the air and landing, because it won't be pretty. I'm struggling to stay in this lane of just video games and action figures. The action figures, for most of you, is a new thing for me to be collecting to begin with, and I haven't really dove too deep into it on the channel yet. I do intend to do a lot more action figure content, but I'm also hesitant just because the YouTube overlords usually frown upon people branching out into other content that their channel is not used to seeing. So there was often a lot of times last year when I was thinking about possibly making a second channel for toys, but it's just like, the channel is called Collecting with Cory. There's nothing about that title that specifically says, hey, we're collecting video games over here. So what would I even title a second channel? Collecting with Cory, collecting toys with Cory, collecting Lego with Cory. I don't know, I'm setting myself up into it. So for those of you watching the video, let's go take a better look at what I'm dealing with in this Walmart. So here we are in Walmart, looking at some figures. Power Rangers Lightning Collection, G.I. Joe Classified. I'm pretty much done with Lightning Collection, and unfortunately Hasbro is also done with it. G.I. Joe Classified is an interesting beast for me because these are figures that are at the top of the action figure food chain, in my opinion, in terms of quality and what is included with the figures, but I'm not nostalgic for it. Whereas I am nostalgic for Star Wars, and Black Series in a vacuum would be cool, but when you compare it to everything else Hasbro's putting out, it's actually kind of bad. The only thing they have going for them is cloth goods. And multiple times over the course of talking about toys, you're going to hear me talk shit about McFarlane toys. And it is 100% warranted. These figures are horrible. Every single figure that McFarlane puts out for the DC line and all the other lines that I see have the exact same articulation. Then, of course, wowzers, we've got X-Men 97. I've got basically the entire wave. I did decide to go with an older Storm figure, but I'm still not 100% sure on that. We'll know better once the actual animated cartoon for it is coming out. And then, of course, we have another staple of my collecting in the toy realm, Transformers. Now, I'm pretty safe from Transformers. A lot of it is really expensive when it first comes out in the stores, and I'm only looking for certain figures. I feel like most of them are very long gameable, and the stuff that isn't, there's usually another version that I'm okay with getting. Like, for instance, I passed on 86 Ultra Magnus that came out because he was like $100. And he's kind of hard to get now, but I'm also okay with that because there are other options. Now, with Lego, there is so much of a plethora of options. In my head, I want to focus on something along the lines of Lego City, because I do like the idea of building a Lego City in my office. But there's just so many options. Like, for instance, you have stuff that could, like, decorate your walls, stuff that can decorate your desk, like the bouquet collection, I think that was called. Then you have all the DC, Marvel, Sonic the Hedgehog now. They kind of fumbled the bag with the Mario stuff. I think it's really dumb that you don't get actual Mario minifigures. You get some toy, but it's Nintendo, so it's kind of understandable why that ended up happening that way. Nintendo always likes to have some sort of weird gimmick with their thing, and that's what they certainly have. But unfortunately, it makes all the Mario sets be something of more of an actual playset intended for a child. So someone that would look to collect or display wouldn't really have anything outside of getting, like, Princess Toadstool's castle. Princess Peach. But for other Lego sets, like, all these 3-in-1s are really intriguing. They're not exactly something that I would really want, but just the play factor that you get 3 options in one set. Now, one thing I've noticed with the Lego City sets is there's no markup because there's no license associated with it. Like, some Star Wars sets and some Marvel sets get pretty astronomical with how much they charge. Harry Potter also, where because it's a license, it's going to be expensive. You're going to pay up for it. Okay, so aside from Lego, what do I mean about staying in my lane? When I first started collecting action figures, it was basically the floodgates were open and everything was rushing in. I was going for anything that interested me in the slightest. In my collection right now, I have a few things that kind of have remained that probably shouldn't be there. Like, I have no love for Todd McFarlane in any of his creations. DC Multiverse, besides making them 7-inch in 1/10 scale instead of 1/12 like every action figure should be, the articulation on them, as you can see on the packaging if you ever look, is the exact same for every single figure. 22 points of articulation, I'm pretty sure it is. And it's because every figure, regardless of who they are, regardless of what they need as a character, has the exact same articulation. They just have a way they do figures, and for some it's great, for some it's horrible, but overall they all need updating in their articulation, just in general. Like, the ball joints for the ankles is just, that's incredibly early 2000s. Like, that's some Toy Biz shit, you know? So it's like one of those things where it's like, why is it this way? First off, you've already kind of screwed the pooch because you can never have Spider-Man and Batman in the same scene. Just because why are all your DC figures towering over your Marvel figures? Especially when you deal with characters that should be shorter, like the Boy Wonder, Robin. Why is he so tall? It's just like they don't really think about things like that over at McFarlane, it feels. So as I'm recording this, I'm actually waiting for Brick House to open on a Saturday, so I have a whole bunch of cars speeding past me, so please ignore that for the audio listeners and, well, anybody else. It's kind of annoying. And it kind of comes up because I'm here waiting for Brick House to open that I always have to kind of remind myself that when I walk in here to stay in my lane, because I'm going to see a lot of cool options for action figures. And a lot of what I do here is I try and find something that I can flip, something I can keep. But this place has been kind of the genesis of a whole bunch of mistakes I've made in collecting, if I'm being honest. Because they'll have cheap figures for, like, My Hero Academia, which, spoiler alert, is made by Todd McFarlane. And, wow, out of the box, those figures were horrible. So it doesn't matter how much you love a certain property, sometimes there just aren't the right figures for it. So you have to stay in your lane that way, because I'm not gonna take money from other things to put McFarlane figures on my shelf. And another one that I kind of am paused on right now is Super 7 Ultimates. I love the way they look. I bought my first few Super 7 Ultimates from here. Actually, I might have bought all of the one. Well, no, I've actually found some at Newberry Comics, but absolutely love them the way they look. They are a 7-inch scale, I believe, which is kind of annoying, but also it's whatever for what you're getting. You're getting a lot of value there. Articulation isn't great, but the main toy line I wanted to collect for them was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And if you've watched any reviews, or if you are familiar with the Super 7 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, all the characters' hips kind of have like this weird thing where they're like super wobbly. And I only have that on, the only one I have so far is Metalhead. And the second I saw that, I was just like, it started making me question the entire line, because I didn't want to sink a whole bunch of money into this. And also, I don't know if anybody else is like this. If you ever see a deal and decide to pass up on the deal, it's hard to ever go back to that item when it's not on sale. So over the holidays, Super 7, I think it was Super 7, or maybe it was one of the online toy store retailers that sell, that might be Big Bad Toy Store or something, had a ridiculous Super 7 sale where you can get figures in, like, the entire waves of figures for like $22 each figure, which is a great discount because these figures usually go for above $50. And because they were all like, they were kind of mismatched, it was like around Christmas time, I didn't have all the money I wanted to just be blowing on action figures for myself. I passed on it, and now I'm like looking at it with hindsight, and it's like, I don't really want to ever spend more than that 22 now, because I know that I could have spent 22 and got them. So I've kind of poisoned that toy line for myself in that regard. So one thing I'm going to see a lot in Brick House here is vintage stuff, vintage toys, loose figures. And I'll be honest with you, when I started toy collecting, that was like my main draw. But as I've gotten more into Marvel Legends and a little bit into G.I. Joe Classified and Transformers, like the current Transformers, like Studio 86, it's hard to go back to some of the older figures if I didn't grow up with them. So I grew up and I had an amazing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle collection up until like maybe 8 years ago, when I probably sold them for pennies on the dollar at a garage sale, because back then they weren't worth anything. Like, I swear, I sell out of things when they're low, and then I'm looking to buy when they're high. It's really horrible with toys for me. I just have a lot of bad luck. Like, I had a few figures left over when I started toy collecting that I did get rid of just because I didn't have the bulk of my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle collection, and I didn't want to start over. So, like, that's like one of those main toy lines from my childhood, and the fact that I don't want to collect it is so weird, but also I get it, because it's just like the concept of starting over is rough. Wow, these two cars just almost collided. Neither one was willing to slow down. That was crazy. I don't know if you could see that on the video. But other old toy lines that I am collecting is just stuff I didn't have, like Transformers G1. And I'll be honest, in a lot that I'm processing for eBay right now, I have a lot of Transformers G1. I have a lot of GoBots. And despite the fact that Transformers quote-unquote won, I feel like some of the toys for GoBots are actually a lot better than a lot of the toys I'm seeing for Transformers. Like, they have transformation features that just, like, make sense. Like, do they all look great? No. But if you look back, aside from nostalgia goggles, a lot of Transformers in robot mode look horrible. Horrible. Look at Megatron with the big codpiece, basically. Soundwave looked great, I think, but maybe I'm biased because he's my favorite character. Optimus Prime looked okay, but even once you get aside from looks, the playability of them is basically all wrapped up in just the fact that they transform. Like, they don't really have much for articulation. Like, Optimus Prime, I don't think, could really throw that many kicks without losing the complete, structured integrity of the robot figure. But, like, the few GoBots I've seen, they hold up. They hold up. I never watched a GoBot cartoon. GoBart. I've never watched a GoBot cartoon before, but I'm assuming it's the cartoons that lost it for GoBots for the most part. They had a good toy manufacturer also, Bandai. I'm not saying they're better than Takara. I'm not saying they're not. But I don't know. It's possible that GoBots are the better toys and Transformers was the better cartoon. Let me know in the comments below if I'm crazy. This is just based on my small sample size of a box of toys. So the ones I've seen from GoBots, I don't have any nostalgia for, so I'm not keeping. I'm keeping a few of the Transformers, but the quality is not there for the most part. Alright, we're going to head into Brick House now. We'll see what we get, but that'll probably be a separate video. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can reach the podcast at collectingwithcory@gmail.com. I've never had to say it out loud before. I would love to hear from you. Leave a like on the video, on your favorite podcatcher, leave a rating, all that stuff. I appreciate you. Until next time, I don't remember how I end these videos / podcasts.